Astronauts are supposed to be by themselves in space, which is a frightening, overwhelming place. Therefore, it is reasonable to conclude that the likelihood of them encountering someone or something is unexpectedly low. But when they do, how are they supposed to respond? When you see something in space, it's probably not what you expected to see because you never expect it there. What else should you anticipate when you leave your neighborhood and travel outside of your comfort zone? Astronauts have had terrifying things happen to them while in space. Are these workplace conspiracies or actual experiences? Let's find out. Space Snake. Dr. Story Musgrave, a retired NASA astronaut, made a lot of progress during his time in space. Dr. Musgrave is the most academically qualified astronaut, having earned 6 academic degrees, and the only astronaut to have flown on 6 space missions. He is the only astronaut to have traveled on board each of the 5 space shuttles. Naturally, Dr. Musgrave's word carries a lot of weight and authority given his expertise and education. It would be challenging to prove that he was lying when he said he saw an 8-foot-long white serpent floating through space. Musgrave is adamant, despite it being easy to think that this could have been a hose that broke free from the spacecraft. He claims that on not just 1, but 2 of his space journeys, he saw the 6 to 8-foot-long eel or serpent-like creature. Dr. Musgrave has asserted in numerous interviews that there's alien life and that he has seen it. Space knocking. To begin with, there is no sound in space. There's only emptiness. This story is peculiar for precisely this reason. Sound waves, unlike light, cannot travel through a vacuum. Hence, there is no sound in space. Because of this, astronauts have specific communication equipment incorporated into their suits so they can talk to one another and have mission control on Earth. In 2003, the Chinese space program launched Yang Liwei, the first astronaut into orbit. He kept hearing a knock when he was sitting in his spaceship. It sounded like someone striking an iron pail with a wooden mallet, according to Liwei. Since sound cannot travel across space, Liwei was unable to tell if the knocking was coming from within or outside the shuttle. Liwei peered out the porthole anxiously, but he could find nothing that would explain the strange knocking. Liwei tried to describe the knocking to experts once he arrived back on Earth, but he was unable to duplicate the same noise he had heard in space. It becomes scarier, as several Chinese astronauts claim to have heard the same sounds between 2005 and 2008 during their space flights. 2 minutes of silence. In his 1975 book, Our Cosmic Ancestors, former chief of NASA Communication Systems Maurice Chatelain stated that 2 UFOs were hovering above Armstrong just before he descended the ladder to land on the moon. Edwin Aldrin captured them in a number of photos. In the Modern People magazine edition from June 1975, several of these photos were featured. According to reports, the first 2 minutes after Armstrong set foot on the moon were silent because the transmission failed because of an arbitrary overheating issue. However, it was purportedly said, "These babies were huge, sir. Enormous. Oh God, you wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, there are other spacecraft out here, lined up on the far side of the crater's edge. They're on the moon watching us." One of the most distinguished lives ever has been led by Dr. Story Musgrave. He is the NASA astronaut with the most spaceflights, a Marine, a doctor, and a mathematician. And he holds 6 academic degrees. He describes a vivid UFO sighting in his account. When asked about what he believes exists out there, Musgrave said, "Living creatures far more developed as civilizations. They've been around for 100 million years, and we can't even conceive how advanced they are and the kinds of things they're doing. That's why I make an effort to communicate and might be considered eccentric because I do, because I know the probabilities are close to 0, but I do tell them to come down and get me." Did Armstrong indeed witness aliens at the time? Strange space music. As we've just discussed, sound cannot travel through space alone and requires a medium to do so. However, astronauts have brought fascinating accounts of strange noises they heard in space back to Earth. Astronauts tested a variety of tools during the Apollo 10 mission, which served as a trial run for the first moon journey. Since this was a real space and not a simulation, the stakes were very high. These astronauts were astonished to hear what they later described as space music on their headphones, a peculiar kind of whistling. According to a U.S. space agency expert, the lunar and command module's radios are most likely to blame for the noise's interference. Al Worden, an astronaut from Apollo 15, disagreed with the justification. Mysterious shiny object on the moon. The 4th person to set foot on the moon was NASA astronaut Alan Bean. While operating Apollo 12 in 1969, he had the chance to do so. Bean said he noticed something shiny off in the distance during his trek on the moon. He characterized the thing as a leather shoe-like form. It's difficult to imagine what Bean saw specifically, and sadly, there isn't much of an explanation. With Bean's passing, it appears that the eerie glow on the moon will always be a mystery. A unique UFO. When someone mentions UFO, you probably picture a spherical disc-shaped object in the pitch-black night sky. The astronauts James McDivitt and Ed White concluded that anything that is beyond our comprehension is pretty much tough to explain. They were above Hawaii when this occurred. They observed a metallic flying object that to them didn't appear to be from Earth and appeared to have limbs protruding from its body. Hopefully, we won't learn what this thing was or why it had arms soon enough. Frozen corpses. Many nations, notably the USSR and the USA, transported a variety of animals to space as test subjects before they dared to send manned shuttles up there, which may sound cruel. Among them are Ham the chimp, Miss Baker the squirrel monkey, and Laika the dog. Some of them returned to Earth without incident, while for others, a small calculation error caused space to become their pet cemetery. On occasion, suborbital astronauts can still see the bodies of these sacrifices for human progress. The sight is sad, but it also has a scary quality to it. Imagine having to continue carrying out your mission amidst floating animal corpses and an infinitely dark environment. Strange lights. Leroy Chow, an American astronaut, served as the International Space Station's commander in 2005. Chow and his crew claimed to have seen a weird constellation of lights in space during their trip. The formation, in Chow's opinion, resembled an upside-down V. Chow kept watching the weird object flashing lights till it disappeared from his view, his heart pounding in his mouth with the joy of the discovery. Chow says he is now positively certain that he was visited by aliens. Additionally, he would not rule out the idea that the UFO he saw was from another realm, despite the fact that some of the information regarding these objects seen in space is available for anybody to interpret. Conspiracy theorists may be overly quick to smell a BS.